All right, this is the third video. We're going to do a couple videos for this unit. This is the largest unit as far as content, but also as far as what you're going to see on the test. So what we're going to look at is today legislative and the legislative branch. So let me change this view here. All right. So Congress is given its powers through Article 1. The structure of Congress is established in Article 1. The powers for Congress, Article 1, Section 8. So basically what we see is with the current Congress we have, the bicameral legislature, it's a result of that compromise that took place where we saw the Great Compromise or Connecticut Compromise, taking the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan and creating the current Congress that we see today. So House of Representatives is the first thing we're going to look at. And first of all, membership of the House, it's 435. That was capped in 1929. So now 435 seats is there. It's apportioned based off of population. Each member of the House serves a 2-year term, and therefore they're elected every 2 years. Qualifications: you must be 25 years of age, citizen for 7 years, must live in state where a district is located. Notice it's just state, not the actual district. There are 20 members of Congress currently who do not live in their district, but you must live in the state where the district is located. Constituencies are smaller. The idea is to have more of a direct line between the people, the citizens in the electorate, and the people who are representing them. So it is supposed to serve as more of a direct line between the federal government and the citizens of the United States. It is considered to be less prestigious in the realm of the federal government. It's a little bit lower as far as the status because of the fact they're up for re-election so often. And the Senate is considered to be the upper house. So when you look at it, you got a lower house and an upper house. The House of Representatives would be that lower house. So how do they determine getting elected? Basically, each state is apportioned an allotment of districts based off of the population that was collected and the data that was collected in a census. There is a census constitutionally. There has to be a census every 10 years. Once those numbers are totaled and tallied, each state will be apportioned how many districts they receive based off of that population. On average, each district has about 650,000 people living in that district. Reapportionment occurs when we see a shift in population. So if you see a decrease in a state's population in, say, Pennsylvania, but an increase in population in Georgia, you might see a shift in a reapportionment of districts given to Georgia and some districts taken away from Pennsylvania during that election cycle. Again, that happens every 10 years with the census. So congressional districting in the end is determined by the state legislatures. There are instances where state legislatures are controlled by one party and will create districts that tend to favor incumbents if that incumbent is a member of the party that is in control of the state legislature. This is known as gerrymandering, named after Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts. So the leadership and the layout of the leadership of the House of Representatives. You have your Speaker of the House. Speaker of the House is actually selected by all members of Congress. Now, in general, that person is a member of the majority party. So the party who controls the majority of seats in the House, the Speaker of the House is a member of that party. He is the most powerful member of Congress, third in line in succession of the presidency, assigns bills to committee, appoints the heads of each committee, controls debate, determines what bills will be brought up for debate, determines where the bills will be sent to, and appoints members to each committee. All heads of committees are members of the same party as the majority party or the Speaker of the House. The majority leader is an assistant to the Speaker and really pushes the party's legislative program. Whereas the Speaker is to represent the entire Congress, the majority leader represents the majority party and only the majority party, and looks to direct floor debate. Minority Leader is going to be the major spokesperson for the minority party and organize any type of opposition to a bill or a piece of legislation that is going to come from the opposition party. So how does a bill become a law? Well, we're going to look at the House of Representatives. Very similar to what we'll see in the Senate, minus the Rules Committee. So a bill is introduced. The clerk of the chamber is going to send it to the floor. It's brought to the floor and then will be assigned by the Speaker of the House to committee based off of the subject of that bill. Once it's in committee, the committee chair will then decide if it needs to go to subcommittee for hearings, investigations, any type of adjustments, any amending, and reworking, writing, and kind of fixing up the document itself. Once it's done in the subcommittee, it goes back up to committee for markup. If the committee votes for markup, that means the bill goes back to the floor in the House. If it's on the floor in the House, it immediately goes to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee will determine the rules for debate and whether or not an amendment will be added to the bill itself. The Rules Committee is made up always of a 2/3 majority party population. So if you have 12 members on the Rules Committee, 9 of them will be a member of the majority party. And that ensures that the Rules Committee, that the majority party controls the debate on the floor in the Congress at that time while they're in charge. So once the Rules Committee determines it, it goes out for debate. Vote is taken. The bill passes. It goes to the Senate. If there is a bill that is the same as out of the Senate, that's the same as the House, it then goes to conference committee to resolve any differences between the House and Senate bill. The bill is resolved. It is voted on in the House, and if it's approved, it's sent to the President. Again, you guys have a flow chart for that. Then we have the Senate. The Senate is made up of 100 members, 2 from each state. This coincides with the New Jersey plan. Every state gets 2 senators, no matter the size or the population. It's a 6-year term. They're staggered. So every 2 years, a third of the Senate is up for re-election. Qualifications: you must be 30 years of age, citizen for 9 years, and you must live in the state in which you are a senator for. It's a larger constituency, so therefore they are the voice of the state. They are not the voice of individuals within districts. They are the voice of the entire state. And it is considered to be a more prestigious because of the fact that they are representing a larger group of people. Early on, originally in the Constitution, members of the Senate were elected by state legislatures. But then in 1913, with the 17th Amendment, we see the shift and where we see the direct election of senators by the people of the state. So leadership of the Senate is very similar. There is a hierarchy. The actual president of the Senate is the vice president. The vice president's main job as the president, presiding officer of the Senate, is to be the tiebreaker vote if there is a tie in the Senate. Then more of a ceremonial position is the president pro tem. The president pro tem is the senior member of the majority party in most situations. Majority leader is going to be the most influential person in the Senate. They're the ones who pushes the party agenda of the majority party. And the minority leader will perform the same role as the House minority leader. Same deal here, guys. If a bill becomes, or how a bill becomes law in the Senate, the same idea, but there's no Rules Committee. Okay? And the Senate does have a couple of rules that are different. As far as filibuster, but we'll get to that here in a minute. All right, congressional override. If the president vetoes the bill that is returned to Congress, they may override a veto by a two-thirds vote in each house. The types of committees that you're going to look at. So standing committees, basically the committees, they line up pretty much with the different departments within the executive branch. They are permanent committees that tackle certain topics, certain issues. Unique to the House would be the House Ways and Means Committee because it deals with taxes. Select committees are temporary committees to deal with a specific issue. Once the issue has been identified and investigated and handled, then that select committee will cease to exist. A joint committee would be the Committee on the Library of Congress, which deals with the filing of all information from the Congress. This is a joint committee where you have members from both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And then a conference committee, again, it's called in if you have a conflict on bills between the House bill and the Senate bill, and there needs to be a resolution of the differences of that bill to create one finalized bill that's resolved. So those are your types of committees. The role of a caucus is it's basically an informal group of people who share common ideas. It could be ethnic background, it could be religious affiliation, it could be gender-based, and basically they are able to push out goals. They can present themselves as a voting bloc within the caucus itself. It's basically a version of what we saw with Madison identifying factions and the idea of caucuses kind of taking that role of factions within Congress. And there are over 200 caucuses within the Congress currently. So members of Congress have different ways in which they can address their roles. They could be a policymaker coming in and trying to create policy. They could be a representative going in and just reflecting that of their constituents as a constituent servant. A representative is someone who's elected, and they're going to make decisions that are either what's going to be seen as the best interest for them or their constituents, kind of based off of their experiences and their knowledge. You got committee members. You're going to, as soon as you become a member of Congress, you're going to serve as a committee member. In the House, because there's a lot more members in the House, you're going to serve on up to 2 or 3 committees. In the Senate, you're going to serve on 4 or 5 committees. Then you're going to be a party member, so you're going to have to remain loyal to your party itself. The incumbency effect, we want to make sure that you understand that this is the number one impact as far as election results, meaning 85% on average of incumbents are reelected based off of the reasons you see listed below, with recognition of name, credit claiming, casework for constituents more visible, media exposure, fundraising experience, voting record, the fact that they actually have served plays a big role on reelection. Again, the legislative powers that are enumerated are listed at Article 1, Section 8. The last clause in Article 1, Section 8 is the necessary and proper clause, or the elastic clause. This does allow Congress to create institutions as seen fit to carry out their powers that have been granted to them by the Constitution. All limitations of Congress as far as congressional power is in Article 1, Section 9. Talks about what Congress can and cannot do, or cannot do actually. And then the 10th Amendment is the reserve powers, talking about the state powers. Basically, if it's not in the Constitution, if it's not enumerated to Congress, then it's the state's responsibility. That is the reserve powers clause. Non-legislative powers. Amendment powers. They can start the amendment process with 2/3 votes. Impeachment, again, with the impeachment process, you need to remember that the impeachment process starts in the House. Charges must be brought in the House. Then the Senate conducts the trial. If the trial involves the president or vice president, then the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is the one who's going to oversee the trial. If not, the vice president will oversee the trial. The Senate must approve all appointments from the executive branch dealing with cabinet members up to federal judges. And they also approve treaties for 2/3 votes. And oversight is, again, a useful tool for Congress to check the executive branch and its agencies. I'm going to point out filibuster or cloture. Just to reiterate, filibuster is only in the Senate. It is an ability to interrupt debate, and cloture is the only way to end it. Pork barreling legislation is that earmarks. Log rolling is voter support, basically. You vote for my bill, I vote for yours. And a few other here that pop up. All right, and that's going to be it for the legislative branch. I'll make another video for the executive branch in the upcoming days.